And it's a family ring?
It is a family ring, yes. It's my mother's engagement ring. So I thought it was quite nice because obviously she's not going to be around to share any of the fun and excitement of it all. This was my way of keeping her sort of close to it all.
This is my way of keeping her sort of close to it all. In a royal sphere where discretion is everything, Carole Middleton has shattered expectations with a decision no one, not even Queen Camilla, saw coming. Known for her poise and protective presence around Princess Catherine, Carole has rarely stirred the waters at court. But behind palace walls, something has changed. Sources reveal that Camilla, caught entirely off guard, was moved to tears, an emotional moment that's now sending tremors through the monarchy. So what exactly triggered this rare royal reaction? This isn't just family tension. This is history, rewriting itself in real time. The power behind the throne. At Buckingham Palace, whispers of discontent have started to echo through its centuries-old halls. A new kind of royal drama is unfolding, and it could rewrite the rules of tradition and power. The royal family, known for its obsession with control and image, is facing something far more destabilizing than a tabloid headline. This time, the tremor comes not from within the House of Windsor, but from a figure long underestimated: Carole Middleton. For years, Carole has remained a consistent, if understated, presence in the lives of Prince William and Princess Catherine. Unlike past royal in-laws who slowly faded into the shadows after their children's weddings, Carole has remained firmly in place. But she's done more than simply stand by. Those close to the family say she has played a central role in shaping William and Catherine's image, their parenting style, and even how they navigate the often suffocating expectations of royal life. She has never sought the spotlight, yet she wields influence in subtle, strategic ways. From helping Kate adjust to palace life after her 2011 wedding to Prince William to giving the couple a sense of grounding far away from the rigid formality of royal protocol, Carole has been a stabilizing force. She offers something rare inside royal walls: comfort, consistency, and a connection to ordinary life. In doing so, she has helped humanize the future king and queen, making them more relatable to the public. But not everyone is pleased with this quiet shift in power. Queen Camilla, officially crowned alongside King Charles III in May 2023 at Westminster Abbey, knows the cost of earning respect in royal circles. For decades, she was cast as the other woman, the figure who disrupted the fairy tale of Charles and Princess Diana. She endured years of public scorn, relentless media scrutiny, and the cold distance of a public still grieving Diana. And yet, against the odds, she emerged not just as Charles's partner, but as Queen Consort, a title she fought long and hard to claim. Camilla is no stranger to palace politics, and she understands the unspoken rules of influence. Which is why Carole's growing prominence doesn't sit well with her. In royal dynamics, influence is everything, and when that influence begins to shift, especially towards someone outside the firm's inner circle, it can trigger silent wars. Insiders say Carole has made a move that has rocked Camilla to the core, a decision so personal and unexpected that it's left the Queen Consort shaken. Not because of protocol, but because it signals something deeper, that Prince William and Princess Catherine may be turning more toward Carole's guidance than the traditional council of the palace. And if that's true, what role does that leave for Camilla in the evolving monarchy? The tension is no longer just private, it's strategic, emotional, and dangerously symbolic. Just when it seemed the monarchy was stable, a quiet power struggle between Carole and Camilla is reshaping everything. You won't want to miss this. When Carole and Camilla collide, behind the glittering carriages and carefully orchestrated smiles, a quieter, more personal royal conflict has been unfolding for over a decade. One not splashed across headlines, but felt in frosty glances and canceled visits. At the heart of it are two women from very different worlds: Carole Middleton, mother of Princess Catherine, and Queen Camilla, once Duchess of Cornwall. What began as polite smiles in public has steadily unraveled into a delicate but undeniable rivalry, one shaping the emotional landscape of royal life from the shadows. It all appeared picture-perfect on April 29, 2011, the day of Prince William and Catherine Middleton's wedding at Westminster Abbey. The entire world watched as Britain celebrated its future king and queen. Carole Middleton and Camilla Parker Bowles posed gracefully for family portraits, exchanged pleasantries, and stood shoulder to shoulder as if united by joy. But palace insiders suggest that even then, tensions were brewing behind closed doors. Carole, once a flight attendant and daughter of a builder and shop clerk, had built a thriving family business, Party Pieces, alongside her husband, Michael. With hard work, they afforded their 3 children the finest education and a comfortable upbringing. Their success was a story of grit, not privilege, something that didn't always sit well with the upper echelons of the aristocracy. Within the marble corridors of Buckingham Palace, where lineage and legacy are everything, Carole's middle-class roots quietly raised eyebrows. As Prince William and Catherine's relationship deepened, so did the subtle shifts in how Carole was treated. At palace gatherings, she reportedly began to feel invisible, greeted with cool formality, ignored in conversations, and often left standing at the edge of rooms. The warmth she was used to outside those palace walls vanished, and Camilla, born into British nobility and fluent in the codes of aristocratic life, appeared to thrive in the very world that left Carole feeling sidelined. Tensions escalated in the months leading up to the royal wedding. Carole had hoped to contribute personal touches to the occasion, gestures that reflected the Middleton family's close bond, but her suggestions were reportedly dismissed, sometimes without so much as a discussion. From floral arrangements to guest invitations, decisions were whisked away into royal hands. She was left to smile quietly, while others took control. Following the wedding, these slights didn't disappear. They simply became more discreet. Carole found her access to Catherine, now the Duchess of Cambridge, slowly restricted. Visits became shorter, holidays grew complicated, and traditions like Christmas with the family were overridden by royal duties at Sandringham. The pull between 2 families, one rooted in warmth, the other in protocol, began to weigh heavily on Catherine. When Prince George was born on July 22, 2013, Carole naturally stepped forward, ready to offer her support as a hands-on grandmother. But palace officials had other ideas. Royal staff were appointed, routines established, and Carole's involvement quietly diminished. Some believed Queen Camilla had supported those boundaries, seeking to limit Middleton's growing influence. By the time Princess Charlotte was christened at Sandringham's Church of St. Mary Magdalene in July 2015, that quiet distance had deepened. A private post-ceremony gathering planned by Carole was reportedly canceled without warning, overridden by Camilla's team, leaving confusion and hurt in its wake. It was a turning point, a personal rejection wrapped in royal protocol. Behind the palace gates, far from the cameras, a quiet power struggle was unfolding. And when Carole Middleton quietly stepped back, was it surrender or the start of a silent power shift? Stay tuned, the truth is near. The day Carole Middleton quietly stepped back. The royal family had gathered in full display, an elegant procession of coats, fascinators, and polite smiles. But behind the scenes, something else was shifting. While all eyes were on the newest addition to the Cambridge family, Carole Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge's mother, had begun a retreat so quiet, yet so intentional, it would eventually ripple through royal circles. What appeared to be an effort to step back for the sake of family harmony was, in truth, a quiet act of self-preservation. After years of trying to fit in, of being the composed yet quietly present mother-in-law to the future king, Carole had reached a turning point. Insiders later noticed a gradual but unmistakable pattern. She was no longer as visible at key events. Her place beside her daughter, once a regular sight, became rare. Invitations grew fewer. Appearances are more selective. It wasn't a dramatic departure. It was subtle, but it sent a message that resonated far beyond Sandringham. Carole, once a flight attendant and the daughter of a builder and shop clerk, had never belonged to the aristocracy. She and her husband Michael built their company, Party Pieces, from scratch and worked hard to provide a good life for their children. And yet, despite her success and devotion, she was never fully accepted into the royal fold. Since the moment Catherine married Prince William on April 29, 2011, Carole found herself navigating a space where her warmth and grounded values were often quietly resisted. For years, She had been balancing two very different worlds, one filled with family dinners and countryside walks, and another ruled by hierarchy, centuries-old customs, and stiff protocols. As Catherine became more entrenched in royal duties, Carole's influence began to shrink. But palace rules had other ideas. The royal nursery was overseen by nannies and had tightly controlled schedules. Carole's help was often brushed aside or redirected. Even simple family visits became complicated negotiations, often rescheduled or shortened at the last minute. According to royal sources, it wasn't just a matter of class. It was a question of power. Queen Camilla, who had once been the most controversial figure in royal circles, had by then found her place within the institution. Over the years, she had reportedly become a firm supporter of upholding tradition, advising King Charles III and encouraging those around her to protect the old order. As her position solidified, Camilla's stance toward Carole became increasingly frosty. Some say she viewed Carole's influence over Catherine, and through her, over William, as a subtle but growing challenge. Two women, two mothers, both are fiercely protective, but as time went on, the space between them widened, and Carole Middleton began making decisions that would slowly redefine her role in her daughter's royal world. So now, is Carole Middleton quietly challenging Queen Camilla's hold on power from behind the scenes? You won't want to miss what happens after this. The royal celebration marking Prince Charles's 70th birthday on November 14, 2018, was intended to be a night of unity. Hosted at Buckingham Palace, it gathered senior royals, extended family, and aristocratic friends in a lavish evening of toast-filled speeches and photo ops. Carole Middleton, as always, maintained her dignified presence, gracious, composed, and ever respectful of the role her daughter, Catherine, now played within the monarchy. But behind the elegance of the evening, a moment unfolded that would quietly shift the dynamic between two powerful matriarchs, Queen Camilla and Carole. While mingling with guests, Carole reportedly overheard Camilla in conversation with several of her long-standing aristocratic acquaintances. Their topic, the changing face of Britain's social elite. In a tone laced with familiarity and superiority, Camilla allegedly remarked on the rise of new money and the irreplaceable value of heritage over financial success. Though no names were spoken aloud, those within earshot, especially Carole, felt the weight of the message. The implication wasn't veiled, it was sharp and unmistakably personal. Carole had spent nearly a decade navigating royal spaces that had never quite welcomed her. From the moment Catherine married Prince William in 2011, Carole tried to bridge two very different worlds, one grounded in the values of hard work and earned success, the other ruled by birthright and centuries-old protocol. Despite raising a future queen with compassion, grace, and resilience, she remained quietly sidelined by the royal establishment, tolerated but never fully accepted. That birthday evening wasn't just awkward. For Carole, it was defining. It underscored the reality that no matter her devotion to her family or the quiet sacrifices she'd made, she would always be seen as an outsider. But instead of reacting with outrage, she did what she'd always taught her children. She stayed composed. From that point forward, her approach changed. No more pushing to be involved. No more suggesting ideas that would be quietly dismissed. She began to step back, not out of surrender, but as a statement of self-respect. Behind the scenes, however, Carole was paying close attention. Sources close to the Middleton family say she began privately recording every incident that revealed how her access was being narrowed. Missed visits with her grandchildren, unexplained changes to family plans, or exclusions from events she once would have attended. She didn't gossip, she documented. And over time, patterns began to emerge. Patterns that told a deeper story of how palace influence was quietly exercised under the guise of protocol. As early as 2024, those once private tensions became visible. At Prince Louis's school concert in London, Carole and Camilla stood on opposite sides of the room. Not a word, not a nod, not even the courtesy of eye contact passed between them. Prince William, ever the diplomatic force in his family, was seen moving between the two, attempting to bridge the silence. But the atmosphere was undeniable. It wasn't just a moment, It was the product of years of quiet rejection, careful observation, and an unspoken rivalry. Camilla, who had once clawed her way into acceptance, now seemed determined to preserve the royal line as it had always been. Carole, in contrast, wasn't fighting for status. She was standing for something more lasting, her right to remain a meaningful part of her grandchildren's lives. And while the palace grew colder, more formal, and less inviting, Carole stayed the course, calm, watchful, unyielding, because for her, this wasn't about appearances. It was about memory, dignity, and the legacy of family, one not measured by crowns, but by care. The real twist? This was never about crowns, but about care, legacy, and quiet power. Pay close attention. This changes everything. Secrets in leather and steel. It began with a quiet tension, one that had simmered beneath royal protocol for over a decade. But by early 2025, the quiet had given way to something more forceful. For years, Carole Middleton had been a picture of discretion, always dignified, always in the background. But on a cold morning, February 6th, 2025, everything changed. Carole arrived at the gates of Buckingham Palace without press, without fanfare, only a small leather briefcase in hand, and a look that left staff unusually alert. It wasn't a social call, it was something else entirely. Inside the palace, where tradition masks, power struggles, and silence hides unease, those who witnessed the meeting described it as a reckoning. Carole, once dismissed as simply Kate's mum, had come prepared. Her briefcase reportedly contained documents, real ones, not gossip or speculation, but records, names, dates, financial trails, property contracts, unexplained reassignments, and subtle shifts in influence that had, over the years, steadily pushed the Middletons out of royal proximity. A pattern of exclusion had finally become impossible to ignore. Sources close to the palace suggest the content reached beyond typical royal scrutiny. There were whispers of off-the-record meetings in Switzerland, funds quietly moved through shell accounts, and household changes that, piece by piece, painted a picture of calculated marginalization. Royal watchers believed the documents outlined how traditions were used not only to preserve power, but to restrict access and isolate certain family members. At the center of it all, Queen Camilla, who had long fought for her place in the royal family and was crowned queen consort in September 2022, had since become one of the firm's strongest enforcers of tradition. Over the years, she had grown wary of Carole's closeness to Princess Catherine, her growing bond with Prince William, and her visibility as a hands-on grandmother to George, Charlotte, and Louis. That suspicion slowly turned into silent decisions, quietly guiding protocol in ways that edged Carole further out of the frame. But what Camilla didn't anticipate was Carole's patience. Rather than confront or complain, Carole had spent years observing, noting each subtle exclusion, each canceled visit, each moment she was quietly pushed aside. By the time Prince Louis' school concert took place in March 2024, the rift had become visible. Carole and Camilla, once photographed together, stood at opposite sides of the room. Not a glance, not a smile, not even a nod. Prince William, ever the diplomat, moved between them in quiet unease. Still, nothing prepared the palace for February's meeting. Those present, say Queen Camilla, typically composed, emerged shaken. One aide claimed she left the room in tears, something the public had never seen before. 10 days passed with no public appearance. When she re-emerged on March 11th for Commonwealth Day, royal watchers noted a visible shift. Briefer conversations, fewer staff, guarded smiles. Even her walk, once confident, now seemed weighted. No statement was made, but the silence spoke loudly. Within hours of Carole's visit, senior staff were called back from retirement. Meetings were abruptly rescheduled. Events were postponed. The palace's famously tight grip on image control seemed to loosen, ever so slightly. For now, Carole remains silent. No interviews, no public messages, but her actions have left an impact. Royal insiders say even Prince William has begun consulting advisors once close to Princess Diana, a subtle gesture, but not one made lightly. And while the Queen has resumed her public duties, the air inside Buckingham Palace has shifted. Behind the gold-framed portraits and red-carpeted halls, something deeper is unfolding. A quiet storm not yet finished with one name at the center, Carole Middleton. So how did Carole Middleton spark a quiet storm inside Buckingham Palace without saying a word? Stay glued to find out. How Catherine quietly took her place. If Carole Middleton's unannounced visit to Buckingham Palace on February 6, 2025, felt like a quiet ripple within the monarchy, it's her daughter Catherine, Princess of Wales, who is now steering the wave. What began as a murmur of tension behind palace walls has evolved into something deeper, something more permanent. Power, once rooted in titles and birthright, is shifting, and at the center of that shift stands Kate. From the moment she officially entered royal life on April 29, 2011, marrying Prince William in a dazzling ceremony watched by millions, Catherine was scrutinized. While the public greeted her with admiration, the corridors of aristocracy offered cooler receptions. She was elegant, yes, poised and educated, yes, but her middle-class background, her parents' hands-on success with their company, party pieces, reminded many of a truth they'd rather forget, that a commoner had married into the crown. Her upbringing wasn't shaped by country estates and inherited fortunes, but by drive, discipline, and grounded values. Yet Kate never retaliated. She never needed to. While others whispered and speculated, she learned, slowly, carefully. She watched how Queen Elizabeth II wielded authority, not with grand speeches, but with timing, stillness, and grace. She took mental notes in those early years, when to speak, when to smile, and perhaps most importantly, when silence says more than words ever could. Through the years, as she raised Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, she became a quiet student of royal mechanics. Her engagements were meticulously prepared, never flashy, always polished. Her image evolved alongside her role, not hurriedly, but with measured intention. By 2023, she had already become one of the most admired figures in the monarchy, but it wasn't until early 2025, after Carole Middleton's mysterious palace meeting, that observers began to notice a new kind of energy surrounding Kate. In March 2025, as Queen Camilla began quietly retreating from the public eye, her presence increasingly absent from key engagements, Catherine began to step forward. There were no press conferences, no sweeping declarations. She didn't grasp for the spotlight, she simply filled the vacuum. Her calendar swelled with engagements, meetings that once involved a room full of courtiers now centered around her. And most tellingly, her working office was moved from a quiet, tucked-away corner of the palace to a suite just steps from King Charles III's own. To those familiar with the architecture of royal influence, this was a meaningful change. In the monarchy, physical space is a powerful symbol. Offices near the sovereign signal trust, proximity, and decision-making power. This move wasn't ceremonial. It was structural. Prince William, always supportive, now leaned more visibly on her insights. In meetings, aides noted how he deferred to Kate's views, particularly on topics that balanced royal tradition with modern relevance. She brought a perspective that reflected both the palace and the public, a rare and needed balance in the current climate. Even her fashion choices played into this narrative of subtle transformation. During a time when households across Britain faced mounting financial pressures, Kate began repeating older outfits, stylishly pairing high street labels with high-end pieces. This wasn't simply about sustainability. It was messaging. The future queen understands the moment her country is in. Her social media presence shifted too. Once curated with formality, royal platforms began showcasing lighter, more human moments, snippets of the children playing, shared smiles between events, quiet behind-the-scenes snapshots. These weren't mistakes. They were carefully chosen signals of warmth and relatability, royal, but not unreachable. Now, in April 2025, a new question looms, not whether the Middletons are accepted by the palace, but just how deeply their influence now runs. Because in this world, power doesn't disappear. It moves, quietly, deliberately, and often without fanfare. And right now, it's moving in Catherine's direction. But what do you think? Is Kate Middleton quietly calling the shots behind palace walls while staying out of the spotlight? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.